Good day, everyone. PogLifeActual here, also known as Gabe Lopez. So, I'm going to start off by talking about the very topic that inspired me to start this channel, enlisting into the United States Army as a prior service applicant. Now, a couple things that you're going to need. Now, when you walk into that recruiting station, make sure you have your DD-214, make sure you have your birth certificate, your social security card, make sure you have a list of the last 10 years worth of addresses that you lived at, and have a reference for at least for each address for the last 3 years. Okay? Now, these references cannot be related to you in any way, shape, or form. And then also you need an overall reference. You need 3 overall references that are not related to your addresses. Now, these references also cannot repeat each other. So this might be a little bit difficult, but make sure that you have those available. Whether they call them or not, that's on them. They didn't call my references. However, it may vary. Now, if you've had any medical injuries during or before your service, you need to call the medical institutions that you visited and have them provide you with all the medical documentation for any injuries or ailments that you have. For example, I broke my arm when I was 16 years old, and I had to provide them with that medical documentation. I had to get a waiver for that for the Marine Corps. However, the waivers from the Marine Corps did not transfer over to the Army, so I had to redo the waivering process for the very same injury that I got a waiver for in the Marine Corps, as well as I needed to get additional waivers for the injuries that I sustained during my Marine Corps service. For example, I dislocated my shoulder during training in the Marine Corps. I got bit by a dog and I had to get surgery. So I had to call those medical institutions and have them provide me with the medical documentation for those injuries. Now, if it's been a while and those institutions don't have the medical documentation, make sure you have that institution provide you with a document that states that they did search their records and they could not find it. Now, I'm going to cover another part of the process that I had to go through that you may not have to. Okay? In 2015, when I was in the Marine Corps, I did get arrested. My charges were dropped. Okay? They were dismissed. However, when you do a background check on me, I don't have any convictions. However, the arrests still show up. So, if you do have any incident where you were apprehended by the law, make sure that you contact the police department that you were taken to and the courthouse. Have the police department provide you with a police report, and have the courthouse provide you with disposition paperwork that shows the result of those charges after you went through the judicial process. Also, make sure that you also write a statement from start to finish as to what happened during the incident. Okay, now for this specific legal process, I will get into further. Now, the recruiter is going to take that information and submit it. Once he submitted that legal documentation, I had to talk to a couple different people, but ultimately I had to talk to a colonel. I think he was the battalion commander of the recruiting station. I'm not entirely sure, but he was an active duty colonel. He called me over the phone. He let me know that he had my legal documentation and he knows and he has an idea of my situation, and he wanted me to explain what happened from start to finish. He interviewed me and he asked me different questions like why I wanted to enlist, and I told him that I missed having a uniform, missed wearing a uniform, and I really wanted to serve. And ultimately, he was the deciding factor as to whether I was going to be allowed to enlist or not. You know, he ended up telling me I have a good head on my shoulders. It was just, I made a mistake, and I also bounced back, and they take that into consideration. I ended up serving an additional 3 years. I deployed and I got promoted. during those 3 years after the incident. So all of that is going to be taken into consideration, and on top of that, on top of your interview, and they're going to determine whether or not to allow you to enlist. Now, that being said, once he approved me, about a week and a half later ish, I had a date to MEPS. Okay, obviously this also means that my medical waivers were approved, and everything else was approved. So in summary, okay, you're going to need your DD-214, your birth certificate, your social security card, a list of the last 10 years worth of addresses, references for the last 3 years worth of addresses, 3 general references, all of the medical documentation from the medical institutions that you were treated at for any injuries during and before service, and if they don't have the medical documentation, to provide a document that states that they have searched their records. And then if you got into any legal trouble whatsoever, regardless of the result, make sure you contact the police department, have them provide you with a police report, and call the courthouse and have them provide you with the disposition paperwork for your charges. Now, if you walk into the recruiting office and you tell them your prior service and you want to join, if they're taking prior service at that time, they will walk you through this process. But if you listen to me and you have all of this documentation ready, you're going to make that recruiter's life easier, and in turn, your life easier. All right? So make sure that you have all of this available. Whether or not you get approved is determined by an insurmountable amount of variables. Whether or not they're taking prior service, how badly they need you, whether or not you're able to prove that you can be a fully functional, physically fit soldier, regardless of your injuries. And then also, if you did get into legal trouble, the severity of your charges, the disposition, and also they take into consideration your bounce back story. What happened after those legal troubles? Okay, so, but if you have all of this documentation compiled and you provide it to your recruiter, then he or she is going to be able to help you out to the best of their abilities. Keep in mind that the process for enlisting as a prior service applicant is different than an initial enlistee. So make sure that you prove to your recruiter that this is what you want to do, and you put in the effort to enlist. Okay? Because typically they have to do a lot more work for you than they would have to do for an initial enlistee. Other than that, I appreciate you tuning in. I have more videos to come, and I will make a follow-up video talking about what occurred at MEPS, job selection, and etc. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.